Welcome to DAX Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of DAX Machina. Joining me tonight is Robbie Rip Rains, and we have a special guest in the studio tonight. Those of you who are already aware of Small Town Monsters, I know most of us are big fans, but we welcome Eli Watson from Small Town Monsters, and many of you will also recognize him as the voice of the audiobook of Lakeview Man. Eli, thanks for joining us, man. How are you doing? Good to have you back.
I'm good. It's good to be back. Thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure, man.
So I do want to say it was nice getting to meet you guys in person at the Smoky Mountain Conference.
That was pretty awesome, man.
It was.
Yeah.
Right up until the point where you left me and DA and threw us to the wolves for
the lady with the crazy stories.
Not that I blame you. Not that I blame you.
I got somewhere I need to be.
Look, I'm sorry, guys. I do feel bad about that, but
Eli, if I could have done the same to you two, I probably would have done it. Because that's about 30 minutes of my life I'll never get back.
Oh, I know. I've done enough of these events to know there's just a way these type of people approach you that you're just like, okay, I need to get out of here as soon as possible. Like,
Since we just we're planning on giving you a ration of crap about it.
Yep. Well, but you noticed when you came back out or you came past our table later on when I called you over there, she had got Greg and Janice and Brent got them kind of pinned down, hemmed up, and she was over there for about 45 minutes talking to them. The exact same story she started telling the three of us was I was like, I just heard this about 20 minutes.
Look at the time.
Yeah.
So how have you been, man? You have been all over the place these last couple of years.
Yeah, man. I especially this year I've been traveling so much, man. It's hard to keep track of and hard to because just a few weeks ago I was with you guys in Tennessee, and then about a month before that I was in Alaska. A month before that I was in British Columbia. Month before that it was New Mexico. It's just like, goodness. Sometimes, that's the perk of the job is I get to go to all these places, but it's also tough because I'm traveling so much, But lately I think the last time on the show I hadn't started my new series yet, so I'm doing this new documentary series on the Small Town Monsters YouTube channel called Mysteries and Monsters. And so Seth kind of gave me the go-ahead to head that up, kind of produce that on my own. And I'm super thankful that he lets me do it the way I want to do it. So, and I cover lots of stuff on there, not just Bigfoot, but also like cults and UFOs and in Tennessee, I was looking into like moon-eyed people, subterranean people, and lots of fun stuff. So,
did you look into the Hopkinsville goblins and stuff like that?
I will be in Kentucky later this year, and that's something I kind of do want to look into. So, yeah, Kentucky. Half my family's from Kentucky, so there's going to be a lot of Kentucky stuff in the future. So,
well, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But you guys Small Town Monsters have been really knocking it out of the park. I mean, you're the one you did on the Texas Dogman Triangle, just freaking fantastic.
Oh, I love that. That's been my favorite one so far.
I don't know. It's going to be hard to beat American Werewolves. It really is. American Werewolves, I just thought that one was such a great one.
It was, but I don't know. There was just something about the way that the Texas Dogman one was done. It just had a different feel for me. I still love the American Werewolves. I hadn't seen one or watched one that I didn't like, but I just really liked that Texas Dogman one.
It's awesome. So tell us about the series. Go. Sorry, Eli. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna piggyback because I like American Werewolves a lot too. So, but Yeah, the Dogman Triangle one was actually a lot of fun to put together. So, my favorite part is the opening, how it opens up like an old travel. What would you even call it? Like a travel infomercial almost.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
the little
that was
travel shows they used to do on like the American Redwoods. You visit the national
yeah,
forest, that kind of
yeah.
thing.
It was funny because I'd cut most of the movie together, and we realized there was never a moment in the film where anyone established like definitively, like obviously it takes place in Texas, but no one ever says, all right, this documentary is about Dogman in Texas. There's never a moment where that happens. And so we were like, okay, well, because part of the audience is people who are not into this stuff, right? So it's like, for you guys, I wouldn't need to explain this is about Dogman in Texas. As soon as I say Dogman, Texas, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. But general public has no idea. So how do we establish that real quick? And that just popped in my head. And I was like, I know what I got to do. Like, this is it. So yeah. But you were asking something. Sorry, DA.
I was going to say, tell us a little bit about that series that you're working on.
Yeah. So Mysteries and Monsters, I pitched that to Seth in about August, about a year ago, actually. And we came up with the idea to launch it this year in 2023. And basically, because I was doing Beyond the Trail with Alex Pettikov for so long, and that's a hour-long format Sasquatch documentary. And I like Sasquatch a lot, but I do have other interests. And I wanted to explore that. And I also have a very different style than Alex does. Alex is very outdoorsman. Not that I'm not an outdoorsman either, but I don't know. I have a little bit of the pizzazz that old school pizzazz that I wanted to throw into my show. And so the idea I had was, well, how do I make people feel like they're investigating this stuff with me? Because that's what's exciting to me, is looking into these stories and investigating them. And the feeling of how excited I got looking into some certain cases and things like that is what I wanted to transfer over into a documentary. And so that's what that series is trying to capture, is like, you're along with me, you're learning about this stuff as I'm learning about it. And I think that comes across as of the time of this recording. The 7th episode is now completed. So there's 7 episodes. It's also the longest episode at an hour and a half, which just felt like it was never going to end. But there was a lot to talk about. So, and one of the big things Seth wanted me to look into was phenomena around me, right? And so, like, I live in Southern California. We're not the Pacific Northwest. So there's lots of ghosts and there's lots of UFO stuff. And but he specifically wanted me to cover Sasquatch near me. And I'm like, okay. And turns out there's actually quite a lot of Sasquatch activity here in Southern California. I say that there's a lot, but it's not like, Pacific Northwest
Right.
or anywhere else in the country, right? But there's a shocking amount. Like, I did an hour and a half long episode on San Diego County alone. Like, that's that's a lot. So
Well, sometimes when you've got a place with enough background history in the subject, the stories just kind of bring themselves to light. I mean, the more information you have, the harder it is to keep the show short.
Yeah, we have that problem a lot on what's really out there. Tyler will be like, we're at like the 45-minute mark. Me and Steve are still rambling on. Tyler's like, yeah, but that's the problem you get, Eli, when you get into something and it's something you enjoy talking about. and you're like, you say this thing and it leads you to want to say this thing. And well, if I said this, but I got to say that, I got to clarify it with this, and I got to. It's hard to stop once you get started on these subjects. I feel your pain. That's what happened when we started talking about sharks the other night, and DA was like,
Shut
up.
That could have been a 5-hour show if we weren't careful.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like the research I'm doing, it's all publicly available. Like anyone can look into this stuff. But what I'm doing, and I feel like where the value comes from in watching my documentary is like the connections that are made, you know, because I'm spending time looking at a map and being like, okay, there's this sighting here and this sighting here at this time of the year, at this year, you know, and trying to excuse me. I'm trying to discover patterns. I'm trying to find the consistency in the behavior in all of it, you know, and there seems to be consistency in behavior. Even, you know, there's sightings of Sasquatch in the Mojave Desert, which is totally not Sasquatch habitat, but there is consistency there. And then not only that, there's consistency among the reports themselves, but consistency within wildlife of the area, because black bears will cross the desert as well. So it's like, that's interesting. You know, it does. I think we were having this discussion, DA, was almost everything about Sasquatch can be explained by some element in the animal kingdom. But what makes it unique is that it's just that it's a unique set of features all in one animal.
Yep. Well, we say that all the time. I always say, to explain some of these phenomenon, all you really have to do is look in what's already been studied and already been found out in nature. The adaptive camouflage, the ability to backtrack, you know, all this stuff. There's other creatures in nature that do all this stuff, but like, just you hit the nail on the head. And I don't even think I've even thought about it that way. It's one creature that does things that all these other creatures do. You know, you may have a polar bear may have adaptive camouflage, but it doesn't do any of the rest of this stuff. And, you know, so, you know, a grizzly bear may backtrack, but it doesn't have adaptive camouflage or something. That's actually a really, really good point.
These things are very intelligent, and they can learn by observing. Look at some of the old school martial arts. Some of those were designed by mimicking the styles of animals. You got monkey kung fu. There's multiple others where they, like the tiger stance and things like that, where they would mimic the actions of animals to do more powerful strikes. So, you know, it's a higher primate. I mean, it's very capable of seeing something else and goes, hey, that's working for that. Let's do that.
Well, piggybacking on that example, Jeet Kune Do, that's Bruce Lee took the best of several different martial arts and adapted them into one martial art that worked well for him, taking parts of Kung Fu and parts of, I want to say Shotokan, maybe karate, but like 4 or 5 different disciplines, making it into one that worked very well for him. Who's to say they're not the Bruce Lee of the animal kingdom? Sitting back watching. Be water, my friend.
Yeah, that's a good quote. But
one of the things my wife and I remarked about was at the Gatlinburg convention, when you and I were talking, the reaction of everybody at the Small Town Monsters booth when I popped my tongue.
Oh,
literally
yeah.
everybody spun and looked right at me like, who did that? Because it's a different sound than wood on wood.
It is a very different sound.
And like you were saying, it explains why you can sometimes make a knock and you get an instant reply. And it's not like he's walking around with a bag over his shoulder with a club in it to beat on a tree.
Yeah, that's the big thing we talked about was how, because sometimes you'll do a knock and then get an instant response, you know? It doesn't. Also, yes, I am from California, to answer that viewer's question. Specifically Southern California, if they want to know. But where was I going with that? The knocks. Okay. What do you think about, because I came across this, and I haven't really come across this firsthand yet, but mimicking animals. What do you make? Do you think they do that?
I firmly believe they do. I mean, there are birds that mimic other animals. That we've documented that parrots will mimic. Of course, I'll imagine the first guy that heard a parrot talk probably wasn't okay for a few days. But birds, there are certain bird species that will mimic the calls of other birds and even other sounds. So I don't think it's really outside the believability. But then you've got so many reports of people talking about the quote unquote 500-pound owl. There have also been reports of people hearing what they reported as sounding like a baby crying in the woods. I think they're very capable of mimicking sounds.
I heard one of them 500-pound owls.
You did?
Yeah. When I was in North Carolina doing my in my tracker school, we were where I said it was backside of Pisgah National Forest, wasn't it, DA? When I were and we were out late into it was probably about, I want to say 5:30, maybe 6 o'clock. And we had done all the evolutions. We were way ahead of the other groups. And our master trainer, the former special forces and for the Army, and he's like, well, y'all just want to go ahead and start tracking me. Well, not really, but so he takes off in the woods and we start tracking him. Well, we end up catching him, and as we're coming back out, we're in that real thick holly and thistles and all that stuff. I mean, it's like really tight, but it opened up kind of up the hill a little ways, and it was like an old, I don't know if it was a barn or just some kind of old building up there. And we heard, they were all, oh yeah, it's an owl, but it was just like, I mean, you could almost feel it in your chest. It was so loud. And I'm sitting there thinking, something just ain't right about that. It didn't click with me at that particular moment. And it was almost like it was following us. And we kind of went back down the hill. We got up on the first road we were on, kind of regrouped, did a little bit of talking. It was still kind of making noises we could hear. We finally walked back to the where we was parked at, get in the cars, go back to the hotel. I texted DA later that night, was telling him about the sound and everything. And he said, you said it kind of shook your chest? I'm like, yeah, I mean, it was loud. He said, dude, you sound like you just heard a 500-pound owl. And as soon as he said that, I started playing back where we were at and the layout and just the area we were at, big creek, and just where it kind of was really thick and really dark in places. It was perfect area for something like that to be in. And I guess we got too close. And I'm like, because as soon as he said that, I started playing it. I was like, you know what? I think we did. I didn't say anything to the rest of the guys because, I don't know who in that group that I was in, because I was only with them for a week, so I don't know what they believed or didn't believe, but I'm pretty sure that's what we heard, because it was like an owl had swallowed an amplifier, because it was weird. Like it was turned up to 11, and I mean, literally you could feel it in your chest when it shrieked or hollered, whatever you want to say it did. It was like you're standing next to a speaker at a concert, and how you can just feel it reverberating in your chest. That's the way it was.
That's weird. One thing I'll talk about, slight spoilers for this next episode here, but I met up with this guy who said he was having frequent activity at his property. He lives like an hour away from where I live here. So I'm intrigued. Like, okay, the last thing happened about 7 months ago, and that's when the last time he was there, because I guess he got into a accident, hasn't been back up to his property since. But he said that they mimicked animals. He said they mimicked cows, they mimicked goats, and they mimicked pigeons, but never at the same time. It would be cows for a few months, and then it would be goats for a few months, pigeons, and then they would rotate through. But what was really weird was I was at this dude's property for a few hours, and I asked him if he had ever done knocks at his property. And he's like, yeah, I only usually do one knock, though, because when I do hear a knock, it's only one. He never hears two or more, so he only does one. So we did a knock, and we're just sitting there, and like 30 seconds later, and I captured this on camera, you get clear as day a cow moo, and the entire time I was there, before and after that, there were no cows around, and I didn't hear a cow moo once. So I don't know what to make of that.
In their wheelhouse. There's a story that I read a while back that it's California up near Big Bear. Some people had some property out there, and every evening they would go out to feed the chickens, and they would yell, "Here, chickie, chickie! Here, chickie, chickie!" for the chickens, and throw out feed. And one night they walked out right at dusk, and from the woods they hear, "Here, chickie, chickie! Here, chickie, chickie!" from the woods.
Yeah, let me offer a slight correction, because that's a story I cover in this episode. That particular story happened a little bit further south than Big Bear, in a town called Alpine. Yeah, that's also known as the Zubies case. So, because apparently the main witness was a well-known psychiatrist, and he was stopped by two San Diego County sheriffs, and they stopped him I don't know why, but they noticed that he had a loaded .44 Magnum in the passenger seat of his car, like just laying out in the open. And they were like, "What are you doing with that?" And he says, "Oh, well, I never go on my property without it." And they're like, "Why?" And he's like, "Oh, I carry this thing because of the Zubies." And Zubies is not the word he actually said, but it was whatever he actually said was misheard by the sheriffs. And I guess they didn't ask him to repeat himself, so they just stuck with Zubies. And yeah, what he described were these Sasquatch-like creatures that were eating fruit off his trees, and apparently really freaking out his family. I wish we had more information on it, because they found him, I think, in the late 90s and the early 2000s, and were trying to interview him. Moneymaker was trying to interview him, but he kept refusing to be interviewed because he said he was going to write a book on all of his experiences, but then he ended up passing away before the book was finished. So there's probably a whole lot more to that story that we don't know about, just because it's gone now. Yeah.
Not unless he left a lot of notes, and those surface someday.
That's the thing, is I wouldn't even know where to start looking for that. I know he had a daughter, but I don't even know where I would start looking for her, you know?
I remember reading that account when you said Zubies, I was like, "Yep, that's the one." But yeah, that's a really interesting account. And they had a lot of, even in that one account that was given, they had some pretty interesting activity, and a lot of it was classic Bigfoot behavior.
Yeah, a lot of it was.
A friend of ours last night was just telling my wife and I a story that happened to her when she was a kid, just north of Springfield, out near actually the town I used to be a patrolman in, Walnut Grove. They lived just on the edge of town, and they kept having something prowling around their house at night. Well, one night they didn't have air conditioning, central air back then. This was early 70s. and they decided to go to town for a cold drink, and it was just after dark, and they were pulling out of their driveway, and a rock about yay big around came zipping out of the tree line, shattered the window that they had air conditioning on in the car, shattered the window, and then put a big dink in the roof of the car on the other side. Said it came through like a Major League Baseball, just zinged in. And they called the sheriff, and they came out there and couldn't find anybody, but they couldn't imagine how anybody could have thrown a rock that hard to have dented the metal on the other side of the car.
See that you get those conflicting stories like that where some people say they can't do anything but throw like that. How do you get enough velocity and momentum throwing something like that to do damage like that?
Well, if you're 1,000-pound gorilla, basically you can put some weight behind something. But even if it like sidearmed it, I mean, because supposedly they're not supposed to be able to rotate their arm the way we would to throw overhand, but you can still get some pretty big velocity underhand. I mean, look at girls' fast pitch softball; they can flat wing a softball.
But they rotate that shoulder around though.
True, but you wouldn't need to rotate it if you're 10 times the strength of a human or more.
True. I think where I was going with it is I think they don't. It's not that they just can do this. I think they can throw overhanded.
Could be right. The only times I've ever seen rocks, they would come in at an arc. But so I always figured they were thrown underhanded. But we don't know for sure.
If they weren't trying to kill you and they were just being curious and just trying to see what you do, maybe throwing like that. But if they're hunting, that's using tools.
I'd say they're pretty deadly accurate with a rock if that's how they hunt.
Well, I mean, you're not always going to be able to get a deer in a funnel point or in a choke point. So you got to have a backup plan.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why you see all the rocks stacked up in different ways. Maybe that's an ammo pile.
Maybe. I mean, especially if you've got a good throwing rock.
Yeah,
that's true.
So
that is noted among primates.
See, it's not even outside the realm of possibility. Just a pile of rocks.
Yeah.
So
that's an ammo dump.
That makes a lot of sense. They're picking rocks that are perfect for as projectiles.
Because most of the rocks that people show pictures of, they're in rock piles like that. The smooth river rocks that would be perfect for that. It's not just like you said, a random piece of quartz or granite that's all jagged and it's a good smooth throwing rock. Maybe we just stumbled onto something, didn't even know about it.
Could be.
That's kind of how we come up with adaptive camouflage and caves and echolocation.
Yeah.
Too.
So Eli, after talking to you in Gatlinburg, you're kind of on the same page I am. The same page me and Robbie both are. That what the people think are tree knocks, they're actually doing with their mouth.
Yeah. Yes. I can't do the click pop like you can, but
when you heard me there, that's not even as loud as I can do it. I kind of toned it back because we were indoors.
And that turned every head within, what would you say, Eli, a 50, 60-foot radius?
Yeah, it did.
I know everybody at the Small Town Monsters table immediately turned and looked right at me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's because it sounds like a knock.
And if you heard it from any kind of distance at all, what are you going to immediately think it is? It's something, striking something else, except for if you hear like a rock clack, because that's kind of unmistakable. But, right. I think it's very much done with their mouth.
Yeah.
What did you think of Robbie and I's theory that it may also be used for echolocation?
It's possible. Hold on.
I mean, there are a lot of accounts, like all the missing 411 cases. The clusters of missing 411 correspond with major cave systems, almost perfectly.
Right. And overlay sightings on top of that too, and the sightings overlay on top of that almost perfectly too.
Yeah, I think they definitely use cave systems, if not to travel around in, at least for shelter. So it makes sense, you know. And like you were saying too, I think the biggest because I was hesitant about that, but when you brought up the fact that sometimes blind people can teach themselves to echolocate,
Yeah.
Yep.
that
There
really
was a
that really
documentary we were talking about where
That's
the guy
where
taught
we
himself
started
to
that theory.
navigate and
And
ride a
yes,
bicycle by echolocating.
Noah was
Yeah.
there too. Acknowledge him. He's
yeah.
see what he said. Robbie and yours, I was there too. Yes, he
That's
was.
true. No, you were. Yeah, Noah was in on that theory that night.
But yeah, that's where we started that, Eli, because we got to talking about that, and I had seen that documentary where that blind guy had taught himself how to echolocate, and they set up a whole course for him to ride on his bicycle, and that some guy was riding around the course, clicking his tongue and missing every obstacle they put. And they set the course up. He had no clue what the course was, and he just riding around, clicking his tongue and turning and missing all these things. It was amazing, but I didn't think anything about it at that time. Then flash forward a couple of years, we're sitting there having the show, and we get to talking about that, and DA's talking about it being a tongue click, and I think Noah's even the one that said something about it. I bet that would echo loud in the cave, and as soon as he said that, it clicked, and I said, "Well, what about this?" And we all just started rolling with it at that point, and just it makes sense when you start thinking about it, because I don't think they're walking around in the woods with a Louisville slugger, as we've said. You know, I asked somebody that one time on one show I was on, I said, "You ever done tree knocks?" And they're like, "Yeah." I said, "How long did it take you to find something that could actually not crack, not break?" And he said, "Oh, about 30, 45 minutes. I'm like, "Yeah."
You pick it up off the ground in the woods. If you hit it against a tree, it just comes apart.
Yeah. I said, "So do you think Bigfoot's walking around in the woods with a Louisville slugger?" Well, I never thought about it that way. And I'm like, it makes sense. I said, if DA can do it as loud as he can do it, imagine how much louder something that size with twice or more of the lung capacity could make something like that sound. And if you're in a pitch black cave and you do that and your ears are trained for that, just like this blind guy trained himself to do, you're going to get a pretty big picture of what's around you.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It fits.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that does make sense. I felt like I was gonna say something more about those caves, but we'll have to circle back because I'll remember it later. But
And Robert, yes, they could. Obviously, these could be tree knocks, but it just makes a lot more sense when you start factoring everything else in that goes on. It makes more sense that it's that, not just them walking. Now, some of them probably, it might be that. It might be them hitting something on it. But you know what? It may just be somebody, some researcher that's out there doing that just to trying to get, because you know, it's not like you have to file permits to be out there in the woods on these places. You don't know who's, 5-10 miles away from you out there trying to, I know it's just an idea. I'm just, this is my idea as to why I think that I think because Steve said that when he actually started thinking the same way that you and I think, DA and Noah, he said he was close enough to it that he could actually tell that it was a tongue click and not a tree knock. So I think if you're far enough away from it, it might have enough distance to travel to where it's kind of maybe hard to tell the difference, because you're gonna have all those echoes and it bouncing off everything. But he said he was close. It happened probably within 20, 30 feet of him. And he could it was so clear and crisp. He's like, obviously it was not a piece of wood being hit on another piece of wood. It was something clicking its tongue. He said we were the only ones out there. He said we were 150 miles around. There was no structures, no stores, no towns
Mhm.
for 150 mile square radius or 150 square mile radius. So
Like I was telling you, Leon. I'm sorry, Eli. The reason I learned to do that is I used to hear that coming from the woods behind our farm. When I was a
Mm.
kid, I would I would whistle and mimic birds and stuff. Back in the early '70s, we had 3 channels and we had a black and white TV, so I didn't watch much television. I was out always running around the fields or out doing something, outdoors. I mean, playing cars or playing with my brothers and sisters, or doing something outdoors, shooting BB guns, riding horses. We were always outdoors doing something. And I used to, especially in the evening, I would hear this popping sound coming from the woods. And to me, it just seemed like another sound I heard fairly routinely. And that's I started trying to make it, make that sound. And I started out like every kid doing like that. I'm like, no, that's not quite it. And then I think it was one of my brothers that did the popping like over their mouth and made it pop. And I'm like, what if they did it
Mhm.
with their tongue? And because I thought it was one of the neighbors messing with us, and I didn't know
Mm.
what it was back there. And then I first started out, it was pretty weak, but then once I figured out how to make it like an echo chamber out of my mouth, and I mean I could do it pretty loud, and I if I'm out in the woods, I can get pretty loud with it.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing too about your click pop is it's so distinct, because another thing that you hear a lot is that these knocks sound like people chopping wood, right? And that's a very, very clean, crisp sound. So, oh, the thing about the caves I was gonna say is you get those reports or those rumors of Tommy knockers, right? Of hearing those knocks coming from caves and stuff. That maybe that could be Sasquatch in there.
Something big echolocating. Speaking of caves, I want to tell you a little bit of a story here. This happened here in Missouri, back in the mid
Okay.
'80s. I used to be part of a cave crawling group. Back when I was much slimmer. But we there was a whole group of us would travel all over this area visiting caves, and we found one that belonged to a family named the Smiddle family up near Grove Springs, Missouri. And we wanted to go in their cave, but they were embroiled in a legal battle with the state of Missouri. Missouri was claiming there were endangered brown bats that lived in that cave. Um, and Smiddles, they said, we're going to take your land. The Smiddles were like, no, you're not. This land's been in our family for generations. And finally, the state of Missouri won. But if you look at the Missouri Department of Conservation's website today and look up Smiddle Cave, and it's on there, it talks about the endangered brown bat, but it tells this story that the Smiddles just donated the land so the state of Missouri could conserve this, and that's not it. That is not the story, because I knew the Smiddles. And let me show you a picture. This is Smiddle Cave
Okay.
today. When I was young, it was not. It wasn't covered in any way. You could just walk into it, and the entrance of this cave is big enough you could probably drive a truck into it. But tell me if you think that they did this for bats. And Let me find the picture, and I'll show you the one for scale. Um, Tell me if you think this is for a bat. That's a person down there for scale.
I guess the argument I guess the argument would be is that's to prevent people coming in. But
You
yeah,
could have done
that's
that with a
pretty
chain link fence.
Yeah.
Here's another view of the cave. You could those things are thicker than my arm.
Yeah, that's
Why would you need that to keep a person out? I mean, a chain link fence would have kept a person out.
yeah, no kidding.
And they still don't let people in that cave. There's certain times of year they'll let limited groups go in, but we have no idea how far back that cave goes. It's reported to be the 5th largest cave in Missouri, and we don't know what it connects to because they just won't tell us. But when you see that when you see that in person, I mean, if they wanted to keep a person out, a 6 or 7 foot, even a 10 foot chain link fence with barbed wire on the top, that's going to keep me out of the cave. But that is like 3 times my height. It's like almost 30 feet tall.
That's wild stuff, dude.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
often
Where is
wondered
that
about
cave
that.
again?
That's here in Missouri. It's near Grove Springs, Missouri.
Okay. Yeah, there's even reports of them using caves here in Southern California. Although the exact location of these caves I don't know where they are. Because I know one prominent cave is on a Native American reservation, so there's no way you're getting there without permission. And apparently they don't give permission to go to those caves. So out of luck on that one. And then one is supposed to be at the back of a canyon somewhere, but a canyon that doesn't have a name. So I have a general
Find on a
idea.
map.
Well, not even that, because I know the general area of that canyon, and there's like 5 canyons there. So it's just like, okay, great. Which one is it? Is it Dark Canyon? Is it Fern Canyon? It's like, great.
Well, that's the thing, though. Once you're open, once your mind has shifted, the paradigm shift has happened, and you realize what is possible, then the question becomes, what else is out there? What, just like the picture of that cave. Okay. And I saw somebody say, is that to keep Bigfoot in or out? I mean, that's really dang scary when you think about perspective wise how big and how thick and how strong that cave is, or that cage is. If that's to keep something in, I'm not sure I want to know what it is that's supposed to be staying in there. Because I don't know why that would be to try to keep something out. I mean, that's like DA said multiple times, that's overkill to keep a human out. And what are you trying to keep out of there, and why do you need to keep something out of there that you need something that big? Because if it's on this side with us, I think I want to be on the other side of the cave.
They took the land from the Smittle family because of quote unquote endangered brown bats. But if you look up brown bats in Missouri, they're in thousands of caves across Missouri. It's not like that was the only cave in the state where they exist. And I don't even think they're endangered. They are in. There's a cave in Missouri, it's got bats in it, and odds are good they're Missouri brown bats.
I guess something interesting to look into would be Bigfoot sightings that are geographically close to that area.
There are quite a few in that area. Grove Springs, Hartville, Lebanon, all that whole area, Niangua, all of those little towns around there got plenty of sightings in the woods outside of those towns.
Interesting.
The only thing that throws a little hitch in the giddy up, so to speak, is the fact that they do let people in there at certain times. That to me is the intriguing part.
Maybe they know at certain times in the year they're not in this area.
But see,
it could be.
If you look at it that way, though, that means whatever that cage is covering doesn't mean it's keeping it in. So if it's not keeping it in, is it there? Like you said, it's overkill to keep humans out. So why is it there? I mean, maybe a visual deterrent, but that still is overkill, because, like you said, an 8 foot.
It's not like if they put a chain link fence. It's not like you could back a truck up there and pull the chain link fence down, because you can't get a vehicle up there. It is too densely. There's a trail to it. There's no way to get a vehicle up there. You'd be hard pressed to get a side by side up there.
Yeah, it's just there's just a lot of variables that don't add up to where you can say, oh, this is specifically for there, that whatever that cage is, or that gate, or whatever you want to call it, whatever it's there for, it's not just one purpose. That thing has got multiple purposes, and figuring out what they are because of the way is, that's, to me, that's the intriguing part of.
Supposedly there are a couple other entrances to that cave, but I've never found them. Pyromedic has a great question. This would be a good one for you, Eli, too. He says, have you all heard of Bigfoot tracks deep in a cave?
I haven't, but that's not to say that there haven't been any found in a cave. Have you?
Well, so there's that story that kind of made the rounds, and again, I didn't take the story firsthand, so I can't say with 100% certainty that it's legitimate. But supposedly, a expedition from the U.S. Geological Survey went into Mammoth Cave, and they, you know how hard it is to set up an expedition into a cave. You got to establish base camps and then supply drops, because it's not like you can have helicopters drop supplies into you. You've got to have a supply chain the farther you go in those caves, because one, you got to worry about your oxygen, and two, it's just not like you can stop at a McDonald's and grab food. You are well, miles below ground. But supposedly the U.S. Geological Survey, 3 days back into Marvel Cave, started finding bones and old backpacks and camping equipment.
There's also the Albert Austin story, where he was taken by Sasquatch and taken into a cave.
Yeah.
That's
where they used a boulder to block the entrance.
That's the one where he gave him coffee and
chewing tobacco, and they got sick and they ran off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was back in what, 1700s, 1800s?
I think late 1800s.
Yeah, that's
there.
Yeah, that was always one of my favorite stories.
That's a good story. I like that one.
But
I think there's a lot to the idea that they're using caves. They're either using them for shelter, or like in the case of Mammoth Caves, they believe that cave system runs from basically eastern Kentucky to Maine. So they could be using that as an underground highway. Hell, there could be an entire civilization down in the deep parts of the cave, and we'd never know.
Yeah.
We've only explored, they're guessing 25% of that cave, and they don't know how deep it goes.
Well, we talked about it before, DA, that they're starting to discover that some of the stuff that, like these areas like Jules Verne described in Journey to the Center of the Earth, these contained ecosystems are actually either a possibility, or they've actually even seen something like that. So, who's to say that there's not whole civilizations of these creatures, or any of these other creatures? Maybe that's what maybe there's a civilization of dinosaurs living down in this middle cave, and that's to stop them from getting out.
I was reading an article earlier today that scientists have identified that there is an ocean hundreds of miles below the surface of the Earth, like a second ocean beneath our oceans.
Really?
And that, to me, that's pretty fascinating.
Well,
so what kind of life is adapted down there?
Not trying to get, spiritual, religious, biblical, or anything, but it does say in the Bible, when the flood happened, the fountains of the deep broke open. So there was, according to the Bible, there was water underneath the earth, because it said there was water above and water below, and the fountains of the deep broke open. That's where the flood came from. It didn't just rain. It came from above and below. So that would make sense. If there's something like that, water had to come from somewhere.
Interesting. Huh.
You've got someone mentioned Admiral Byrd. James Lindell mentioned the Admiral Byrd was at Operation High Jump. where they talked about a cave entrance in the South Pole that he was supposedly able to fly an aircraft into, what they call the hollow Earth theory. I don't necessarily think that the Earth is hollow like an egg and there's another civilization inside, but I would be willing to bet there are vast networks of underground massive caverns.
Yeah.
I think we can pretty much say that's probably because if there's a cave system that stretches from Maine to, and Johnny even said last night that it goes further than Maine, it goes down towards New Mexico, the Mammoth Cave system. If it goes from Maine to New Mexico, that's pretty close to a hollow earth theory. Because I mean,
yeah, wow,
that's an entire subterranean ecosystem.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that you pull it apart like them like them plastic Easter eggs and there's nothing there, but it could be more like a honeycomb with just a beehive, whatever you want to call it, just a series of tunnels and interconnected waterways and things like that. I mean, that is not beyond the realm of possibility.
And if there's fresh water at that kind of depth, certainly life could flourish. That might explain why we so rarely see Bigfoot or dogman on the surface. Maybe they live below ground and they come up to hunt.
Maybe. Huh. I don't know, though. I feel like they don't live in caves. I feel like they use caves, but I don't necessarily feel like they spend the majority of their time down there.
You could be
But maybe
right.
I'm wrong.
There was an article that it was one of my moderators, Tombstone, is in the chat. He just sent me an article. Was it yesterday, Tomb? That they believe that there are entire clans of Neanderthal living in northern Siberia and northern Canada. And if you look at the if you look at the some of the drawings, like from Danny Vendramini's Them and Us, that book where he did a forensic reconstruction of Neanderthal, if they look even remotely like that, that's the very definition of a modern Sasquatch.
Right.
Well, we hadn't even got into Antarctica and how mysterious and strange that place is. I mean, that's still the largest landmass in the world, I believe. And
Antarctica?
if it's as vast if this what we're talking about, think about how much landmass could be underneath Antarctica that we don't even know about.
Right. Well, we've kind of gotten away from talking about Eli's projects. We kind of went off on tangents of our own there.
That's fine. That's fine.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, we
Antarctica.
A little sidetracked.
Yeah.
But go ahead. What were you going to say about Antarctica?
Oh, I was going to say, isn't there evidence that it used to be a forest as well, like a lot more temperate than it is now?
Well, they found a map in Egypt called the Pyrrhus map, and the Pyrrhus map, they didn't know what it was at first, and then they started looking at some of the land masses, and they said, we think this is Antarctica without ice. And then in 1972, the U.S. Navy did a sonar scan of Antarctica, and they said, no, the map is wrong. But then they went back and did a second study and found out that the initial study was wrong and the Pyrrhus map is correct. The Pyrrhus map is a map, a hand-drawn map of Antarctica without ice on it. And it was luxurious. It had jungles and it had dinosaurs. In fact, the species of dinosaur was found in Antarctica. They call it Cryolophosaurus. And it was about the size of a T-Rex.
Really?
Yeah, look, it was actually sort of in between an Allosaurus and a T-Rex. It was like that step in between those.
They named it cryo because it was found in Antarctica, but you can Google Cryolophosaurus, and it was a species of basically a T-Rex type dinosaur that was found in Antarctica. I want to say it was found in the mid or early 90s. Let me see if I can find a drawing of it or a picture of one of the bones.
Insane. I've never even heard of that. That's actually wild.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Antarctica is a mystery all by itself. K. Bauer says Squatchosaurus.
It is.
Squatchosaurus.
Antarctica, man. Yeah, it's funny how even though this conversation has taken a turn, I guess you would call it alternate history. And I don't know. That's become somewhat of an interest of mine lately, honestly.
I can, since this
Like,
is somebody's image, I can only share it for a few seconds before I get a copyright strike. So I'll put it
okay.
up for just a few seconds. But this is an artist drawing of Cryolophosaurus.
Okay.
Sorry,
Got it.
I didn't want to get a copyright strike, so I give it about
Yeah.
5 seconds. Here's the Natural History Museum's listing on the Cryolophosaurus. Um, let's see. Cryolophosaurus is one of the earliest meat-eating dinosaurs found so far. It lived in what is now Antarctica and had a small curved crest on top of its head.
All right. This is where the alternate history stuff starts to come into play, because if the Egyptians had a map of Antarctica, when is the official timeline of when Antarctica freezed over? Because if we weren't living alongside the dinosaurs, how would we know?
What do I always say, DA? What about the Inca stones? You heard of the Inca stones, Eli?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Robbie?
the Inca stones, obviously from Inca, about 4,000-ish years ago, these were discovered. These are stones intricately, words. Glad Ken's not in the chat. He'd have got me on that one. But very intricately carved stones of pictures of stegosauruses, triceratops, brontosaurus, Tyrannosaurus Rex. All these dinosaurs that we can see in books, they've carved them on these stones. How? How they didn't Google them.
Yeah. Google didn't exist.
The only way that things just like these cave paintings of Sasquatch, and there's cave paintings of dinosaurs, pterosaurs and pterodons and all those flying dinosaurs. How did they do that? There's only one explanation for how these tribes and these cultures that many years ago drew pictures of what we now call dinosaurs, which that word was not till 1860, I believe, ish.
Something like that.
Coined.
I think you're right. Yeah.
How did these people know what a stegosaurus looked like? We know now because of video games and books and things like that, but they didn't know unless they saw it. That's the only way.
An image of the Pyrite map. I want to share the screen and show you guys something. This is just an image of the map, so I'm not worried about getting in trouble for that. This is the Pyrite map. Let me zoom in on something and see if you guys spot what I did. What does that look like?
That looks like a dogman. And a Bigfoot.
Dancing with a monkey.
I'm having to turn my head in a angle.
It's badly pixelated. It's the best
tail.
image I could find, but and it's not the only image of something like that on there. Look at this one. It's obviously standing.
This is bizarre. I have never seen this.
But see, and that's the thing, Eli. Stuff back then, they weren't looking for their 15 minutes of fame like people are nowadays. If they said that they saw things like this, people believed them because there was no reason to not believe them.
Pretty bizarre, huh?
That is bizarre. Yeah, that's strange.
Let's see if I can find that picture of those Inca stones, DA. I think I still got them.
What it says about the Piri Reis map is it's a world map compiled in 1513 by Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. Approximately 1/3 of the map survives, housed in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. When rediscovered in 1929, the remaining fragment garnered international attention as the sole remaining copy of an otherwise lost map by Christopher Columbus. The map is a protolan chart with compass roses and windrose networks for navigation rather than lines of longitude and latitude. It contains extensive notes, primarily in Ottoman Turkish, depiction of South America is detailed and accurate for its time. Scholars attribute this particular arrangement to the Caribbean, to a now lost map from Columbus that depicted Cuba as part of the Asian mainland and Hispaniola, according to Marco Polo's description of Japan. The southern coast of the Atlantic Ocean is widely accepted to be a version of Terra Australis. So the map was discovered in 1929, was drawn in the 1500s, and depicted Antarctica without ice on it.
That's bizarre.
How does that happen?
I haven't shared a picture since we switched back over to Melon. I found the pictures. How do I share them, DA?
Go to Design, and then look for the section that says Overlay, and where it says Upload New Overlay, click on that. And it'll only take PNGs and JPEGs. Otherwise, you'll have to share the screen.
All right.
Find it?
Yep.
Okay.
Here's the first one. Oh, well. It says restricted access. This action requires a subscription to paid plan.
Okay, I think I still have some of the Inca stone pictures. Let me look. I have to scroll down. Give me just a second. Sorry, Eli.
Oh, no worries. Take your time.
I know I've got them somewhere.
Yeah, you should. I know I've sent them to you. But when you see these things, Eli, when he gets them up, it's just immediately you're like, you know exactly what it is. But how did they know? I mean, it's almost like you have to unlearn everything that they tried to.
Knew.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, yeah.
There's one.
Oh, I'm looking at the comments. Someone asked me, wait, what is this? Oh, these are dinosaurs. Bro.
Right. And these were drawn on stones by the Incas.
Around 4,000 years ago ish, maybe a little bit more.
Here's another one.
But I mean, there's no denying what those are.
And that's just a couple that I found that I still had in my files. The Incas had, dozens of stones carved like that. Oh, here's a good one. Let me get that one. There's, you can look at this and you can't really imagine it to be anything other than a dinosaur.
Let's see it. Yeah,
No,
come on, dude.
No, Papa. They actually were found to be 100% correct. They're accurate, authentic. There were some that some people tried to fake, but most of them are.
Wow. So I have heard of those, but I have not seen them before. So thank you for showing me that. That was pretty wild. But by the way, someone in the comments asking me what my thoughts are on the dogman topic.
What do you think about dog?
I feel like this is where DA and I diverge, because I think the dogman thing is 100% paranormal. To me, my opinion, honest opinion, is that there's no such thing as a biological dogman species. I think they're all werewolves. I think they're people shapeshifting. I think that's what these things are.
Well, I won't say it's not possible. I would never say, impossible, that the way I think is the only way, because we don't know. But the earliest references to a dogman type creature were called the cynocephali, which were both seen by both the Greeks and the Romans in northern Africa and in the Indus valleys of India. There are detailed accounts in both Roman and Greek, as well as Alexander the Great's own army encountering and fighting these things. In Catholic iconography, is it Saint Christopher that's known as the dog-headed saint?
Yep.
Yep.
A lot of old Catholic images show him as having the head of a dog. Both Marco Polo and Christopher Columbus talked about finding these cynocephali creatures on islands during their journeys. So we've got notes of these creatures going back for centuries. It is entirely possible that they're supernatural in origin, but I think it's equally as possible that they could have been just something that stayed away from us because they know, once we developed fire, humans became bad news. Much like Bigfoot, it learned that avoid the humans with the pointy sticks because they will kill you. I think very much so. Especially since in Egyptian mythology, both Anubis and Wepwawet, who had the head of a wolf, were associated with the underworld. I think that might be a strong connection that these things could be very well could be subterranean, and there are caves all over LBL.
I'm kind of in the middle. I think there's both. I think there are biological creatures that people, because like we talk, Bigfoot, that term was not coined till 60 something, DA 50 something.
What, the Dogman? No, it didn't come around until the late 90s.
No, well, I said like Bigfoot. That term,
Bigfoot. Yeah, Bigfoot I think was coined in '57 because of the sightings of the loggers in Northern California, and Jerry Cruz had that plaster cast that he made, and it was a newspaper reporter from I think Humboldt County that coined the term Bigfoot.
So that's where I was going with that. The term Bigfoot was not coined until '57. The term Dogman was not coined until 1990s. Everything prior to when the term Dogman came out, it was a werewolf.
Or wolfman or wolf creature.
So who's to say that because my theory is if it is truly a shapeshifter, if it's truly something like a skinwalker or something demonic, it's going to appear to you as what your worst fear is. And if your worst fear is something like that, that's what you're going to see. So I'm kind of on the fence with both of you. I think there are biological creatures that a lot of these sightings have come from, but I also think that there are shapeshifters, skinwalkers, those demonic entities out there that people see. Because think about it, sometimes you hear them described having red eyes, and people like you use the term hellhound, demonic. They use all that, but then some people, like when DA had his sighting down the road in LBL, it was just like an animal.
I didn't see glowing red eyes or anything like that.
So that's where I come to my termination or my determination of, it's just like we have multiple species of Bigfoot. There's Gugway, there's Genosqua, there's the Patty Gimlin type, skunk ape. There's all these different types of, how many different types of big cats are there? I mean, just because this tiger is a tiger and this lion is a lion, there's still cats, but there's lots of differences. So I think there's room out there in this whole big world in this whole big universe, rather, for there to be both, for there to be some type of biological creature that fits that classification. But there's a whole lot of paranormal and spiritual things going on out there that we don't know anything about, that could very well, it's like I brought up to William Nighthawk one time. I said, you think about all these Mothman sightings and think about all the descriptions. That sounds a lot like some of the vampire descriptions that you used to get in the old times. Wings, red eyes, you get mesmerized by it. You kind of lose track of time because read some of the old vampiric descriptions. It sounds a lot like what people describe when they see a Mothman. So who's to say that some of these things that we're seeing, that we have these old names for, werewolf, vampire, who's to say that they're not some of them supernatural and paranormal? But those have to come from somewhere.
Robbie and I, both coming from a law enforcement background, we can both tell you, if you go to a crime, let's say you go to a bank robbery and there are 5 witnesses, and you take them to the side, separate them, set them down, and take an eyewitness account, you're going to get 5 different descriptions. Happens every time. Nobody agrees on everything. You'll get a different type of clothing. You'll get a different height. You'll get a different weight. But, you could get 5 witnesses to the same crime and you'll get 5 different stories.
I think it's a lot of it's perception that goes for like that. But I just feel like, there's just nobody can say, and not that anybody in this panel says this, but nobody can say, I know everything about these creatures and I know all there is to know about them. None of us can say that, and like I said, none of us have ever said that. But it would be unfair for either one or any of us to say this is the only way that it can be, because there's just so much out there that we don't know. And
Robbie and I, we say on here all the time, there are no experts in this field, and all we ever do is put forth theory, because nobody knows for sure. Until we've got one under a microscope, we can't deal in absolutes. None of us could be right. Every one of us could be wrong. What all we have right now is theory and conjecture, and based on eyewitness accounts, based on firsthand evidence gathered, you form theories, and sometimes those theories are wrong. But who knows who's right? It's hard to say.
And here we go again, because this is what I know, and what I know most about as far as it goes. Think about what we knew about sharks when Jaws came out. Think about what we knew about great white sharks.
They were stupid, mindless killing machines.
Mindless killing machines that all they do is eat, swim, and make little sharks. And they target humans. They're evil creatures that we knew that about them because of that one movie. Great movie, one of my favorite movies of all time. But that's what we knew about great white sharks. We dang near heard. Look at what we know about them now. They're extremely intelligent. They're ambush predators. They don't hunt humans.
Yeah.
But it's just, what we know about the world we live in, we should know, we probably should know a lot more about it as long as we've been living in it, but we don't because we're idiots because we think we know more than we do instead of taking the time to actually learn. But we get so many of these people, these, like DA likes to say, the Smithsonian type people who think they know everything about everything. And it couldn't possibly be. I can't do the accent as good as him.
That's why I make fun of the old British Museum explorers. It was like back in the 1800s when the first reports of the mountain gorilla came in, and the British Museum was like, "Oh no, that couldn't possibly exist." Turned out it was true. Somebody hauls one in, and they're like, "Oh, I get to name it. It's a new species." Same with the story of the killer ape. Stories came out of Africa for years of killer apes that would kill people or even hunt other animals. And Western science was like, no, that can't happen. These things are vegetarians. They're not killer apes. In 1999, National Geographic proved them otherwise. The billy ape. The billy ape is a species of very large chimpanzee. Its closest cousin is the eastern lowland chimpanzee. They're closer to like 6 feet tall, and the locals call them lion hunters because they use tools and will hunt and kill lions. They've carried off villagers. These things make war on other clans of billy apes. These things are vicious. Yet, it's unbelievable that there's a large primate running around the North America that was undiscovered until it's undiscovered. The billy ape was only discovered 20 years ago. Discovered.
Yeah.
The locals knew about it for a long time.
But there again, that's the problem. You get so many of these people who claim that they know everything, and then all the rest of the people start listening to them, and then before you know it, you get. It's almost like a cult, like you said earlier, Eli, because you can't. How many times have you said it, DA? If somebody doesn't want to believe, no matter what you tell them, you're not gonna change their mind. If they are so dead set that these creatures do not exist and that you're stupid and you don't know what you're talking about, short of one walking up and smacking them upside the face, they're not going to believe it. It doesn't matter what you say. I say, look, I'm 26 years as a law enforcement officer. I saw one. You were stupid. You didn't know what you don't know what you were talking about. You saw something else. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'm glad that you can interpret my sight and my vision and can correct my problems. I thank you so much.
And then you get people that say, I've been going into the woods my entire life and I've never seen one, so they couldn't possibly exist. Yet I've interviewed dozens of people who have said that exact thing. I've been going in the woods my whole life, and then one day I was in a deer stand and there that damn thing was, and now I don't deer hunt anymore. Yep. These things are elusive and we don't see them often. And there's a reason for that because humans are strangers and stranger equals danger.
Stranger danger.
That's right.
You see Bigfoot with a little thing up on a cave for his kids, stranger danger, and a picture of a guy guy up in a deer stand.
But it's funny we talked about sharks. You made that joke at the beginning about sharks. You like sharks?
Mm-hmm. I love sharks.
Robbie loves sharks.
I wanted to be a marine biologist when I was a kid.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I watched a documentary not too long ago about Valerie Taylor.
Ron and Valerie Taylor,
Yep. And how she would train the sharks to take photos. I'm like, that's insane. Who figures that out? Like
they were the ones. They were the ones that invented that suit because they invented that suit so they could film for Jaws. Most all the live shark footage or all the live shark footage from Jaws came from Ron and Valerie Taylor.
It's pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if I would feel comfortable swimming next to a great white. It's just water is not my element. I do not feel comfortable in water like swimming in a pool is fine, but like swimming in the ocean, that's different, right?
Well, I think that goes in the uncanny valley, because you are you are definitely in a place that you can't see, and you know that there's something that could be hunting you 100%.
Yeah.
You see the drone footage, like drones flying over beaches. And you see all these people out there playing and swimming, and these sharks are just swimming right past them.
And and that's the thing. If we were on the menu,
Be a lot more people vanishing.
we kill way more sharks in a year than we kill billions of sharks a year.
Well, statistically, cows kill more people every year than sharks do.
Well, usually more people get killed by falling coconuts than get killed by sharks. And that sounds funny, but it's true. I mean, it's just, but it's like, how many people die in car wrecks in a year?
A lot.
But you don't usually see those on the news, right? But one airliner crashes, one big plane crash, it's all over the news. But there are more people killed in car accidents. But why do you hear about that? Okay, like I said, more people get killed by falling coconuts than sharks, but that ain't news. That's not a hot button topic.
True.
And it's just, sharks are so beneficial to the ecosystem. If sharks weren't around, people don't realize this, we would be in a lot of trouble, because all the things that would be left in the ocean, all the dead animals and carcasses floating around, it would not be long before the oceans would be poisoned and would be no good for anything.
Toombs brings up a good point. Hippos kill more people than sharks. Hippos are deadly. And Toombs is in Australia. How many people do crocodiles get in Australia every year, or along the Nile?
Kangaroos.
Crocodiles get a lot of people every year.
How about even kangaroos? I feel like kangaroos probably kill a lot of people too.
Well, half the things in Australia is trying to kill you.
And here's the thing. Mark said, yeah, but those things don't eat you. Well, here's the thing. What are you going to do if somebody comes into your house? You're sitting in your room, in your living room, you're eating your supper. Somebody you don't know just pops in your house. What are we doing when we go in the ocean and we're swimming?
We're going in their house. We're
going in their house. You cannot blame animals. And that, here we go with my nature kick again. You can't blame animals when we do stuff and put ourselves in that situation. You can't blame the animals for being animals and doing what animals do. Sorry, not sorry. I mean, it's horrible when somebody gets killed. That's not what I'm saying. But if you're swimming in the ocean and you're putting yourself in that position, it's no different than going and laying down on a set of train tracks. You're not mad at the train when the train comes through and hits you, because you put yourself in that situation. You have to take responsibility for what you do. If I go out and I go skydiving and my chute doesn't open and I go splat, I can't blame anybody for myself. Unless somebody put a gun to my head and made me get up in that airplane and jump out of that airplane, I can't blame anybody but myself. If I choose to go scuba diving and I get attacked and killed by a shark, I chose that.
Tim and I were talking here not too long ago. He said they've got a big problem with tourists in Australia. They tell them all the time, don't go swimming in these bodies of water. And of course, there's always going to be one of them that doesn't listen, and they get dragged off by a saltwater crocodile.
Yeah. That's not the croc's fault.
Yeah, you went into its house.
It's just...
It's the same thing you're going, and I know I'm kind of dragging this back to cryptids here, but it's kind of the same thing if you're going out into the woods and call blasting, the Ohio calls, or you're tree knocking or popping your tongue. You're in their house and you might just be ringing the dinner bell. That's why I'm pretty hesitant about doing stuff like that, because we don't know what we're saying. We could be insulting its mother, we could be asking it to the prom, or we could just be announcing, hey, something crunchy over here to eat. We don't know what we're saying. Tim says, yeah, we have a problem with tourists becoming lunch, unfortunately.
Dang.
I guess that puts a whole new meaning on the phrase tourist season.
Tourist seasoning.
Tourist seasoning.
But, I'm sorry if that makes people mad, but it's just people. And it's not just animal. I mean, it's the whole entire ecosystem itself. We've got to realize what we're doing to this planet. And you and I have talked about, DA, when you go out and hunt, people that go to Africa and shoot an elephant and leave it just laying there just so they can say, oh, I shot an elephant. That, these. I'm going to stop before I really, really get going, but that drives me.
Well, it's funny. I was talking with someone not too long back, but it seems like a lot of people who are into Sasquatch end up being conservationists as well. And that certainly happened to me. I never considered myself a tree hugger until I really started looking into Bigfoot and seeing the damages of logging and just environments getting destroyed and stuff. And it's just like, dang, bro. I feel like it's hard not to be a conservationist.
One of the earliest conservationists was President Teddy Roosevelt. Have I told you my Teddy Roosevelt theory, Eli?
No.
Well, are you familiar with the book that Teddy wrote called The Wilderness Hunter?
That's the one that includes the Bauman story, right?
The Bauman story. Well, I've got a theory about the Bauman incident. The sheer level of detail in the Bauman incident, coupled with the fact that Bauman was never came forward. He was never given a first name. He never came forward. It was never popped into a bar one day and said, "Yeah, that was a story about me." He was never identified as a person. I think Bauman actually was Teddy Roosevelt. I think Teddy Roosevelt told that story about what happened to him and another trapper, and he didn't want to talk about his partner getting killed by a monster because he still had political aspirations at the time. He wasn't president yet. Mm. Flash forward, if you can accept that Teddy Roosevelt knew what a Bigfoot creature was. Flash forward, what's one of the first things Teddy Roosevelt does? He created the National Park Service. He set aside. How many million acres is it, Robbie? Is it like 88 million acres?
87 million.
87 million acres of land we're still not allowed full access to today.
That's just national. That don't count state parks.
That's not state parks. That's just national parks. And that's not public use or recreation areas either. That is national parks alone. And in Missouri and Arkansas, just those two states, the Mark Twain National Forest and the Ozark National Forest are 5 million square acres by themselves. And there are tons of stories of Bigfoot coming out of the Mark Twain and the Ozark.
Well, isn't it the Mark Twain that you said that if you look at Google Maps, is almost an unbroken chain of green? Just about.
Well, if you look at Google Earth, if you look at Google Earth and use the actual satellite view, if you look at the satellite view of the United States, if you look from Canada to East Texas, it's almost an unbroken set of green along the Mississippi. There's just tons of habitat that people don't realize. And when we're talking about national parks, 88 million acres, that's not counting the hundreds of millions of other acres that still aren't developed. I mean, how much of the Rocky Mountains is undeveloped, but yet they're still not national parks? How much of the Appalachians, how much of the Smokies are not developed? I was in the Smoky Mountains just a couple weeks ago. Our cabin, you could not see anything but trees every direction you looked from our cabin. It wasn't until you got on the road and got down to the highway and drove into town that it opened up. But in that valley where we were at, it was nothing but trees. So how much of that habitat is viable? And I guarantee it's a lot of it because there were not a lot of houses there. And that's not national park. And then you look at Smoky Mountain National Park, that's another massive area. So these national parks are perfect preserves for large species like that. I think Roosevelt knew about them and took steps to make sure that there was always land set aside for them.
It makes me want to go back and reread that story.
If you look at the level of detail, and I can tell you this from a cop standpoint and growing up a hillbilly, getting that level of detail out of somebody that spends that much time out in the woods is like pulling teeth. You will not get that level of detail out of somebody without like an intense interrogation. This is, telling what kind of traps they used, and how they set their camp up, and what they made their bedding out of. That's not level. If somebody had a monster story, they're not going to tell you we used pine boughs to make a soft bed. They're going to tell you we set up camp and this thing came in and killed my partner. You're not going to get that level of detail that you get in the Bauman encounter.
It's a pretty good point. Not gonna lie. Yeah.
And I don't think it's a big leap of the imagination to think that Bauman actually was Teddy Roosevelt.
Well, I mean, and we've said it how many times. If Bauman was somebody else, why would he have not come forward and said, "Yeah, that was me"? Because I mean, he would have been famous.
Because that was a pretty popular book, and it's even still popular today. But that Bauman incident story has been told and retold since the book came out.
Yeah.
Would have think at some point that guy would have come forward and got free drinks out of it.
Probably. For
someone asked me, Eli, are you? Someone said, Eli, are you learning anything tonight? Yeah.
Well, we ask a lot of questions.
Yeah. Well, the map. What was that map called again?
The Piri map. Piri. I think it's Piri. Piri Rice map. It's. I'll tell you the exact spelling.
Oh, I think I got it.
Piri Rice, REIS. Piri Rice map.
Piri Rice.
And in 1972, the U.S. Navy verified that it was accurate.
That's cool.
And it's bizarre that it's a hand-drawn map of Antarctica without ice.
Yep.
Nick S. says, do y'all think there are more cryptids in the eastern portion of the USA versus the western portion? I don't necessarily think there are more cryptids in the eastern portion, but the population of the eastern half of the United States is far more dense than the western half. In the western half of the United States, you have far more wide open spaces.
Yeah, there's a lot more open spaces. Plus, the environment out west is definitely a lot different. We have a lot more deserts out here. And just by nature of a desert, there's less people out walking around in them. So there's probably a lot of species. Like if you're using the term cryptid as it was originally coined as animals, like unknown animals, there's probably a lot of cryptids out in the deserts that we don't know about, that maybe someone's seen once or twice, but they live in the desert and no one's hanging out there. So
well, I had a question for you, Eli. Of all the places you've been, Yeah, I know you guys have been in some pretty woolly places, like up in Alaska and British Columbia and down in the big thicket of Texas. What place really freaked you out? What place really scared you out of all of those, or the most? Because I know that the documentary you guys put out when you guys were up in the Olympic Peninsula, you guys were a little worried that night.
Yeah, that's tough to say because without a doubt, I mean, I've camped in a lot of places, but consistently, the places I have felt the most freaked out were always in the Pacific Northwest, whether that be Oregon, Washington, or even Alaska. Um, sorry, excuse me. Oregon, Oregon, I've camped in the most, and I would say no, actually, scratch all that. I know the answer. It's Northern California, Bluff Creek. Bluff Creek was it. Uh, and so there's Louse Camp, which was established by Tom Slick back in the day as kind of the base camp to do Sasquatch research there. And I've camped at Louse Camp and I've camped at the Patterson-Gimlin film site. And funny enough, when I camped at the Patterson-Gimlin film site, that was the night I got the best sleep on that entire trip. Because it felt normal. It wasn't, excuse me, it wasn't scary. Louse Camp itself was really freaky. In the day, it was fine, but when night fell, it just had this really weird feeling to it. Lots of stories surrounding it to where I guess it's fairly common to see people in white, like phantoms hanging out at Louse Camp. Voices coming from the creek, like people talking. Obviously, people have seen Sasquatch in Louse Camp. I believe Bobo saw his Sasquatch in Louse Camp. And when I was there, I had a dream the second night. And it's the only time I've ever had a dream like this, where I woke up screaming. I literally woke up everyone in camp because I was screaming and fighting my sleeping bag. And the dream was that I was cowboy camping by the creek, and this coyote came out of the woods and it started to sniff me, and then it started biting my arm. And so I started screaming and trying to punch at it, and that translated to real life, and I was screaming and punching in real life. And then come to find out, later that week, someone arrived who was very familiar with the Native Americans of that area, the Yurok tribe, and said, I told him that dream, and he said, oh, that's significant, because in my dream, it was a single coyote. It was just one coyote. And he said, when a single coyote appears to you in a dream, according to Yurok folklore, it means you're not welcome. And I didn't know about that. I did not know about that. Definitely.
Something might have been warning you guys were not welcome there.
Or even specifically me, that I was not welcome there. You know, it's like, I don't know.
That's pretty freaky, dude.
Yeah, dude, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. It's wild looking back at all your experiences and being like, oh yeah, that happened to me. That's like weird and unexplained. And you just go through your day-to-day life having shoved that in the back of your mind, you know, because I don't know if I could live thinking about that every single day. You know, like,
but
yeah, that's weird.
I've always put in great stock. I've always put great stock in lore told to me by Native Americans. They're I would never discount anything that they told you about something like that, because they certainly have embraced a way of life that we have turned our backs on. They're far closer to nature than we have been as a civilization for a very long time. And when they say something about that, like your dream is significant because you're welcome, I would take him at his word that something was telling you might not want to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I on my travels I have met, people from the Navajo tribe, people from the Omaha tribe, and I always seem to get along with Native Americans really well, and I think part of it is the fact that I do put stock in their beliefs and things. Because this is what bothers me. This is what bothers me about everything is people preach this kind of like acceptance of other cultures and other beliefs, and then it comes to Native Americans and they're like, oh, Bigfoot isn't real. And it's like, well, the Native Americans have a tradition of it. Well, they they also say Coyote's a trickster, and they associate all these fanciful attributes to different animals and stuff. So therefore, Bigfoot isn't real. And I'm like, that's not how mythology works. Like it's based on observations they've made. Like Coyote can be a trickster. Coyotes make all sorts of weird noises. Like they make some freaky noises. It's like, so I can understand where the trickster idea comes from, or or how seeing a single coyote is a bad omen. To answer that question, I have actually never been to LBL, so we'll find out when I go later this year. So, but no, I've never been freaked out in Kentucky before. But I've also never been like Bigfooting in Kentucky before. Like it's always, like I said, half my family's from Kentucky, so it's always been like family trips and stuff. What in the world?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering that myself.
That comment?
Yeah.
Were you looking at that comment? I'm just mind blown. Okay, well,
Did it disappear?
it did. It totally disappeared. I was reading it.
Yeah, it just disappeared.
Sorry. It's just funny. It blows my mind how personally people take the internet.
Yeah. Oh well. Can't make everybody happy. So, what was your favorite place to research?
Ooh, that's a good one. Probably Colorado. We stayed at this couple's property out there. Older couple and their full-grown son were there, and they had repeated Sasquatch activity at their property. From like their horse's hair getting braided in the middle of the night, which I hear that can also be explained away by the wind or hair getting caught up. But I mean, some of these braids were really really nice braids. So
Yeah, that's not going to happen by chance.
I remember, though, I'm still torn as to what exactly I heard when I was there, but they always said that they came from the wood line at the back of their property. So we decided we would camp out right at the edge of the wood line at the back of the property. And what happened was, it was, I think, the second or the third night we were there, and I woke up at 3 in the morning. I woke up and I was panicked, and I like said to myself, like, I knew, I was like, something's here. And it really freaked me out. And then I looked at my phone. It's like 3:30 in the morning. And I'm like, okay, well, and I like stayed up and I listened, nothing's going on. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to sleep. I start hearing the coyotes go off in the distance behind me. So, for frame of reference, their house would have been behind my head with the woods towards my feet. And so the coyotes are off on the main road about half a mile away, and I hear them going off. And I hear just this loud, like, scream come from the woods right in front of me. And it was like a back and forth. 3 times that thing went off. And the third time that thing went off, all the coyotes stopped and everything went completely quiet. And we had our audio recorders going, so we caught that on audio. And I've had several people listen to it, and several people have told me that that was a single coyote that got lost, but I have never. They always call it a coyote distress call, but when you look up on YouTube what a coyote distress call sounds like, it sounds nothing like what I recorded.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we have packs of coyotes. I live kind of in a rural part of Southern California. We have lots of coyotes. I grew up here, and never once have I ever heard like just the other night, I heard what I thought was a coyote distress call, where a coyote got separated from the pack. And it was a lone coyote going off and the pack going off farther beyond. It did not sound like what I heard in Colorado. And it definitely didn't have that kind of force that what I heard in Colorado heard. And also, I've woken up because of coyote calls, but I've never woken up before coyote calls either. Like, there was a distinct feeling I had before that call. In fact, maybe I'll try to find it so I can send it to you.
I'd love to hear it.
All right, let's see. I know I sent it to Coyote. Yeah, but I would probably say Colorado's my favorite place.
What about when you guys were up in Maine? That was a really good documentary you guys put out. I liked that one.
Yeah, Maine was interesting because nothing happened. Obviously,
but there was the whole time there was this air of expectation, like I was just waiting for it, and it seemed. It seemed like nothing happening was almost something happening, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It was like the whole place just kind of like held its breath while you were there. It was bizarre.
Yeah, it was bizarre. It was it well, the weather wasn't cooperating for one thing. We weren't expected to get rain.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot of it. on that first day, and then the rain stopped, and then it was like unbearably hot the next few days, and we were also getting eaten alive by bugs. I still say Maine is the place I've been to with the most bugs. It was absolutely insane.
Worse than Alaska, because I hear Alaska's bad.
Alaska is bad, but no, this part of Maine was just something else, and there was never a break from it either. I don't know. Go
I'm
ahead.
going to try something before my next outing. I found a place they sell through Amazon, but they make citronella soap, and you shower with it before you go out in the woods. Of course, I'd still spray my boots and pant legs, but you have the citronella oil is on your skin. It's supposed to keep bugs at bay.
Huh.
I'm going to try it, so I'll keep my fingers crossed that it hopes well, and I'll give a review.
Yeah, do it. Let's see. Hold on. I'm going to find that audio so we can look at it. Hopefully. Because I want your guys' opinion. I'm sure you guys would
I'd love to
know.
hear it.
Well, if it ever... Oh, well, it would help if I plugged it in. There we go. How should I send it to you if I find it?
In order to upload it, I'll need to upload it in MP4. So you'll have to, unless
It's an
you just
MP4.
want to play it on speakers for your mic, because that'd be the only other way I can do it.
I see. Hold on.
If you've got it on your phone, you could just hold it up by the mic.
Yeah, I don't have it on my phone, but hold on a minute. If I can find it. Bruh. Oh, he left.
Oh, he'll be back. His audio cut out. It happens about once a show.
I see. No, I don't have it. Where did I put it? Files.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yeah.
here it is.
Okay.
I had it here the whole time. All right. Let's see. Let me email it to you, DA. Or so we can play it nice and loud for everyone.
Okay.
What's your or you can text it to me if you don't want to share it online.
One that I share on the show all the time.
All right.
DARoberts@DARoberts.net.
DARoberts@DARoberts.net. Ooh. All right. Let me know if you get that. It's MP.
There it is.
Did you get it?
Yeah, I got it. Let me see if I can upload it. Might have to see if I can get it over to my phone. Okay, it's not one to play on my computer. Give me just a second. What the heck? Why won't this stupid thing play?
Is it not working? Because I can.
I'm having trouble getting it to play.
All right.
Yeah, I can't get it to play, unfortunately. Okay, sorry, that didn't work. Well, unfortunately, nothing I've tried would play that.
I got it. I'm gonna put it up against the
Awesome.
mic.
That'll work.
Sorry, I was talking
Hey.
to you guys the whole time, not realizing my mic was still silenced. So I was saying, I was like, "Oh, no worries, Da. I'll pull it up on my thing," and then I just saw right now my mic was silenced. So. But all right, this is it. Let me double check. So yeah, it's the 3 howls, and I believe I looped it 3 times. So can you hear that? Can you hear those coyotes in the background?
Yeah, I can hear the coyotes.
All
But
right.
that big scream is no coyote.
It's gonna play again.
And that ain't a coyote.
Dude,
That
I'm
is
telling you.
that
Yeah.
is too big to be a coyote for one thing, but you can definitely tell it's closer than the coyotes. But that has got some lung capacity. I've never heard a coyote make a sound like that.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like a crazy person. I show this to people and they're like, "Oh, that's just another coyote." I'm like, "That is not. You can hear the coyotes.
Yeah, I
It doesn't
clearly hear the
sound like
coyotes, but that scream is no coyote. I've heard coyotes my whole life. That's no sound I've ever heard come from a coyote.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Robbie, what do you think, man?
I'm like you, DA. I've been in the woods my whole life. I've never heard anything like that. I mean, I don't even want to venture a guess what it is because I mean, I don't even know where to start
Right.
because you start thinking about trying to think out of the box. I mean, like bobcats sound like humans screaming sometime, but I've heard bobcats my whole life. That don't sound anything like a bobcat. Don't sound like mountain lions. Don't get that high and that loud generally. I honestly don't know what can get that loud. Because, like you said, that whatever that was has got some lung capacity.
yeah. Yeah.
And generally, if it's got lung capacity like that, that means it's big.
And again, the weird part is that I woke up before it happened. I woke up and I knew something was there. Like I had that feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
but,
see.
give you chills if you heard that, through your tent.
Dude, yeah, it's bizarre. I don't again, that's one of those things. It's like, yeah, that happened to me and I just shove it away in the back of my mind because
I'd be curious to hear how that compared to what Naoma said she heard.
Yeah. Well, she said it was hitting a little too close to home for her, and she was going to bed. So I asked her if that was like what she had heard, and she hasn't answered. She must have went to bed.
Because
he
when she was
responded.
when she was talking to us and telling us that story tonight,
Yeah.
she said pretty much you could tell that still bothered her.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There it is. Okay, I didn't miss that.
Um, but yeah, I will probably have to get off here though, guys.
All right, man. I know it's it's a different time zone and everything, but we'll probably stay on here for a little bit longer. But Eli, thank you so much for spending time with us. Good luck in all your future projects with Small Town Monsters. And folks, once again, if you have not listened to Small Town Monsters, first off, you're missing out. But head over to Small Town Monsters YouTube channel, and you can even find a lot of their documentaries on Amazon Prime. They've got their own website as well. Small Town Monsters to me is probably the best right now at documentaries. I don't watch a lot of the Bigfoot shows on TV because most of them are just there for ratings. Small Town Monsters to me are presenting a documentary the way a Bigfoot documentary or a cryptid documentary should be done. American Werewolves and the Texas Bigfoot Triangle, probably two of the best. Texas Dogman Triangle, probably two of the best documentaries, especially about the Dogman subject, that are currently available. If you have not had a chance to check out Small Town Monsters, you need to do so. I think the chat just got put up. That's awesome. Well, I hope it didn't freak her out, but it's awesome that it's close to what she heard as well. That's kind of validation to me. But Eli, before you go, tell us again a little bit about Small Town Monsters and your work with it, and what we should be looking for in the future, and just kind of wrap it up for us.
Yeah, so Small Town Monsters is a production company. We specialize in making like Bigfoot and cryptid documentaries. So, like you mentioned, we've done lots of Sasquatch documentaries. We're doing a lot of Dogman stuff lately. And I currently do a series on their YouTube channel called Mysteries and Monsters, where I look at Sasquatch sightings and UFO phenomena in Southern California. And so that's kind of where you can kind of keep up to date with that. Oh, I also have a podcast called Cryptid Campfire. Do that once a month. So feel free to check that out if you are interested. And yeah, I don't know where else I will pop up next, but DA, I've had a lot of fun tonight, and I'm always willing to come back on whenever you want.
We'd love to have you back anytime. You got a standing invitation. Anytime you want to promote something or you just want to come and hang out, you got a standing invitation. You're welcome anytime. And let me know. When you guys are planning to do something in LBL, because I'd love to come and hang out with you guys.
Yes. Yeah, let me write that down to get your contact info to Heather. So yeah, we'll be in touch with you about that.
Yeah, anytime you need a tracker, you get in touch with me too. So,
all right, Robbie Rains. Where are you at, Robbie?
I'm in South Carolina.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Well, dude, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We'll let you go and take care of whatever you need to take care of. Hope you get to feeling better. I know you're still feeling a little under the weather, but yeah, dude, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing good stuff, and we all love it.
Thank you very much, DA. It's appreciated.
Anytime, brother.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
See you.
You be safe out there.
Bye.
Bye. folks, it was awesome having Eli on. And I had, small town monsters is one of my favorites. I love watching their channel. I love watching their documentaries. If you haven't had a chance to watch any of their documentaries, I highly recommend it. Their videos are definitely binge worthy. You're going to find a lot of great information. And what I like so much about them is they don't really go for anything fantastical. They don't do anything, they don't do anything out that we wouldn't do here, me and Robbie. They're very down to earth, and they have a very no nonsense approach to things, and they've always get some interesting results. Like the one in Maine, having no result was kind of a result. It was so weird that nothing happened. They didn't even get a lot of contact with animals in Maine. It was like everything was avoiding them in Maine, and it was really bizarre. But some of the other stuff that they've done up in the documentary they did when they were up in the Pacific Northwest on the Olympic Peninsula, fantastic documentary. And I haven't seen the one that they did in Alaska, but I can't wait. I can't wait to watch that one as well. But Texas Dogman Triangle, American Werewolves, just to name a couple, those are some fantastic stuff. Robbie, what do you think?
Yeah, like you said, that if you want to watch a good, no frills, no Hollywood glitz and glamour that's only cares about ratings and is only going to say the things that, if you want a good documentary that's going to give you the facts and present it in a way that is a lot more scientific and a lot more fact oriented, then check them out. I mean, that you got Eli, Seth, Ken Gerhard's associated with them, Lyle Blackburn. Most of these guys have been doing this for probably, what would you say? I know Eli's only been doing it for, a couple of years, but between Lyle, Ken, and Seth, they've been doing it, 20, 30 years probably?
Quite a bit. A lot of experience there.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's just, it's a great documentary. If you haven't watched them, like DA says, start off with American Werewolf. That one was my favorite until I saw the Dogman Triangle. Like I said, something about the way
I like it too, but I just like American Werewolf.
Well, that was the first one that I ever watched from them. So, but like I said, the Texas Dogman Triangle was just, and maybe it's just because that's the area, or in the area we're going to in a few weeks. Maybe that's why it kind of piqued my interest up a little bit more. So, but you won't go wrong watching any of their.
Oh yeah, fantastic documentaries. Well, I finally heard from Doc. He's out with the guy that's hosting a class. So he was out to dinner. So said he's sorry he couldn't join us. But since we got on the subject of old Doc, how about we hear a little word from him about Dark Angel Medical? How's that sound?
Play the little guy.
Hey everybody, this is Kerry Pocket Dot Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with DA Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com, along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
And folks, if you go to darkangelmedical.com, we are an affiliate with Dark Angel Medical. You can use that link there, the tiny URL link, and also make sure on checkout you use discount code cryptid25 for 25% off your order. And they have what's called the Kit for Life guarantee. If you use your kit to save a life, they will resupply the kit for free for life. They are just, to me, they're the best kits on the market. I carried one of their kits on my duty belt for years, and I can't imagine, I can't imagine placing my life in the hands of a better kit. You want to tell us a little bit about Scalawag Tactical?
Sure thing. Scallywag Tactical is another of our affiliates. You've probably recognized the name from the books. You got the Jolly Roger, you got the Razor folder, the Bounty and the Gunner's Mate are two of the knives that are featured heavily in the Wild Hunt series. I think some of them are in the Lakeview Man too, maybe.
Mhm.
And the reason that be the Gunner's Mate, the reason DA puts these in the books and uses real world stuff like he uses, like Doc's kits, like Craig's knives, is because they're good stuff that we believe in. Every one of us has got a knife or 12. You can never have too many knives. And like me and Doc love to say, these things will cut you three ways: long, deep, and continuous. I'm not scared of my gun, but I'm scared of this knife because it will cut you very, very deep, very, very quick. And if you don't have,
Yes, it will.
if you don't have one of your Scallywag or one of your Dark Angel medical kits beside you, you might bleed out.
They will cut you. These razors. Razor is the perfect name for these things. These things are just so freaking sharp. Let's see if I can find a straight piece of paper. I
So
know I got some around here somewhere.
while DA is looking for that, there's a section called Blemish Blades or Blim Blades. Jump on there. This was a Blemish blade. I got this blade for $15. It's normally like a $45 blade. The box was messed up. Just about every one, with the exception of that one knife that DA's got that he shows sometimes. Yeah, look at that. Well, to that point, I've had this longer than you've had that one. Just so you can see that a knife that I've had almost a year. We'll do the same thing, and I've never put a stone on it. They stay sharp. So
Hold the edge better than any other knife I've ever had.
Mm-hmm. So get on Scallywag Tactical. Look on the Blemish Blades. Get you a good haul of blades, and then when you go to checkout, use code DA Roberts 10. Get yourself an extra 10% off, because you can end up probably getting 3 or 4 knives for what you'd pay for one.
Yeah.
And they're really good on shipping. You usually get your knife get your order within 2 or 3 days.
I just got an email today that they put several more blades on the Blemish blade sale. The MDV is on there. There are 2 or 3 others that haven't previously been on the Blemish blades that they've got several new blades on it. And our other affiliate is little old Ken Brock. I don't think he's in the house tonight. I don't remember seeing him.
No,
Ken
I hadn't
Brock
seen
owns
the
Brock.
midget. I hadn't seen the midget tonight.
Ken Brock owns BrockBlades.com. And, well, Scallywag Tactical blades are fantastic blades. They're mass-produced blades. If you bought 2 Gunner's Mates, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. Ken's blades are all hand-forged. This one's called the Skein-Du, which means black blade. It was a holdout knife that the Highlanders carried in their sock. Just a beautiful knife. All of his knives are handmade. No 2 are identical. The handles will be different. And if you can order your blade and have it customized, you can pick the design of the blade. You can pick the type of handle you want on it, the color, everything. So his blades are all custom made to order. Well, he does have some that are available that are pre-made that you can select from, but you can order a custom-made knife completely. And if you know anybody that's an outdoorsman or a first responder or in the military or law enforcement, the gift of a custom-made, one-of-a-kind knife is something that will be treasured. And these knives are high quality, high carbon steel. He does a fantastic job, and these knives will last you a lifetime. And that's why Will Gray Eagle carries Ardennes in the books, because I love the blades, I love the designs. So hopefully you guys will go over and check that out. Check out brockblades.com. Like I said, there are some blades that are already made that you can order through the website, and you can also customize and request a custom made blade. And if you order something that's already in stock, you can use discount code cryptid10 to get 10% off your order. Or if you're ordering a custom blade, in the notes, make sure you mention that you heard about brockblades.com through this show, and he'll give you a 10% off on your order there as well. So hopefully you guys will check all of those guys out. Again, there's a reason why we choose companies like that to be support. They're all, in the case of Brock Blades, he's a first responders, career law enforcement, and Doc and the guys at Scallywag are all veterans. These are veteran-owned and first responder-owned companies. And I'm wearing my 22 a day shirt. I'm a big supporter of all things veteran and first responder. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and the 22 a day foundation is something that's near and dear to my heart. I've lost too many friends under a flag, and I don't want to see us lose any more, especially to suicide. Let's get that down to 0 a day. If you know anybody that's a first responder, be that from EMT to corrections to even security, law enforcement, works in a hospital or an ER. These are first responders, folks, and they see horrible, horrible things. People that have been in the military, whether or not they deployed or not, sometimes they still see pretty horrible things. But all your veteran friends and all your first responder friends, reach out and check on them once in a while. Let them know you're thinking about them, because that hey, how are you doing? I was just thinking of you text might be what keeps them back off the edge for that day. So always, let them know you're thinking of them. Let them know when they're important to you. So yeah, I agree. Toombs needs to be 0.
And
so,
to piggyback off what DA said, a lot of people and normal people don't realize the things that we see from day to day. I just got back yesterday from putting a 22-year-old kid in the ground who didn't even really get a chance to start his career. And he got put in the ground because he was doing his job. Some woman decided she wanted to lay down on the train tracks and kill herself. And he was trying to get her up off the tracks, and she fought with him, and she pushed him back and pushed him in front of the train while he was trying to save her. And he lost his life trying to save her life. She lived, but he didn't. And he was he'd only been out of the academy since March. And people sometimes wonder why law enforcement and first responders are some of the highest numbers in suicide. That's why. It's for things like that we see every single day. So I had to get that out because
that is perfectly fine. Well, folks, and again, another big shout out and thank you to Eli Watson from Small Town Monsters for joining us tonight. I think this was a really good show. We covered a lot of great material. Looking forward to having him on again. And hopefully we'll maybe working on some projects with the guys from Small Town Monsters in the very near future. We'll see how things go, and we'll keep you guys posted. But thank you guys so much. Oh, and I wanted to, Robbie, you got something to end the toast with? Got a little splash of Irish.
Oh, give me a quick second. If you can talk about the toast, I'll be right back.
All right. Well, I chose this. It's an old Irish song called "The Parting Glass," and if you've never heard the song, you should go on Google or go on YouTube and look up the Irish song "The Parting Glass." It's a beautiful tune. I think it was originally written in the 16 or 1700s. It's a very old song, and it's just something that's very near and dear to me. And I find the I find the lyrics to it very, very comforting at times. And it's a very beautiful song. It's a very haunting song, as a lot of old Irish tunes tend to be. But I decided I wanted to lift a glass at the end of every show to all the first responders, all the veterans, all the active duty military, everyone that's put their life on the line so that all of us can be free and be safe in our homes. I want to lift a glass to each and every one of those, and to also lift that glass to those that made the ultimate sacrifice. And the quote I want to make from the song, and if you get a chance to listen to the whole song, it's very poignant. But it says, "But since it fell unto my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all." Good night, everybody.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAX Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.